Boldwood presents Desired Hearts, written by Cissy Mecca and read by Aspen Pearl and Josh Witchard. The Bachelor Pact rules. Never stay the night, never date the neighbor, never fall in love, never say, "I do." Fall for the dirty-talking, confirmed bachelor? No way. Get stuck in a cozy snowbound log cabin together and indulge in a scorching, no-strings fling? Maybe. Parker Scott may have a reputation as the nice guy, but he's also a ruggedly sexy commitment-phobe bound by a Bachelor Pact to never settle down. So despite the sizzling chemistry crackling between us, I don't take his flirty innuendos too seriously. Except now we're trapped in a remote mountain paradise. 1 minute Parker's a sweet-talking gentleman, the next his whispered words in a steaming hot tub surrounded by snow and temptation threaten to make me forget why I've sworn off relationships for good. With the weekend over, I'm hopelessly addicted to Parker's unique mix of tenderness and sin. Is this eternal bachelor perhaps not so sworn to the pact after all? One thing is clear. With my heart once again in turmoil, I'm teetering on the edge of a decision that could rewrite the rules of my story. Again. Chapter 1. Delaney. Cedar Falls, Finger Lakes region, New York. 2 minutes ago, I was on top of the world, or at least on the top of my Stairmaster game, feeling empowered, strong, back to my old self. Just like that, with the start of a new song, tears sprang from seemingly nowhere, unbidden. My chest tightened, shoulders sagged, steps slowed. I will not cry. Unfortunately, I knew better than that, so before embarrassing myself, the gym was packed this time of day, I jumped off and headed down to the locker room. In what felt like the only break I'd had all month, it was empty. Letting the tears flow should have felt good, a necessary release. But nothing about this breakup felt good. Certainly not the fact that one stupid song brought me immediately back to 1 month ago when the thought of never talking to Makis again, never having answers as to why he texted, "I don't think this will work out, would like to stay friends though," had me struggling to get out of bed 3 days in a row. I had to get out before someone came in. Grabbing my coat and keys from the locker, I pulled my good vibes only hat down further and bolted to a freezing cold car. After a few more minutes of ugly crying, I felt enough in control to try my friend Jules. No answer. Another press of my phone button, and Pia's voice flooded the car. "Hey there!" Her cheeriness was all it took to remind me that, despite pretending otherwise, I hadn't felt like myself in weeks. Months, actually. By the end, Makis was acting so strange, our long-distance relationship causing me so much anxiety that my friends and family had started to notice. That's the thing about having a bubbly personality and wearing your heart on your sleeve. When you weren't feeling it, everyone could tell. "Oh, Delaney, where are you?" "In my car," I said. "Driving?" "No, sitting in the gym parking lot." Thankfully, I didn't have to tell Pia I'd had to jump off the Stairmaster and bolt out of there like someone was giving away free cupcakes in the parking lot, which, to be honest, wouldn't be a bad way to get people to the gym. Counterproductive maybe, but... "Did he contact you?" No, I clarified. A song reminded me of him. Oh, well, that will happen. I deleted every playlist I made when we were together. I guess it snuck through. There's no way to get rid of every single reminder. You guys dated for nearly 8 months. On and off. Sure, but more on than off. It will take more than a few weeks to heal. Give yourself some grace. I'm trying, I said in earnest. My cheeks stung. I squeezed my eyes shut, new unshed tears escaping. This sucks so much. My heart hurts. I know it does, but try to remember how he made you feel these last few months, how often he made you feel poorly. You deserve someone who does just the opposite. I took a deep, steadying breath. I deserve to be loved, not dismissed and discarded. Yes, she said, knowing that was my new mantra. I make mistakes and have moments of weakness, but the people who are meant to be in my life love me either way, and I am worthy of their love. It's time to look forward and not backward. You got it. Just keep reminding yourself of that, saying it over and over. This is so damn hard, but won't last forever. You just have to get through the tough days. It's feeling like Wine Wednesday. I'd planned on using the night off at the pharmacy to clean my jewelry and makeup drawers, get my apartment organized. But I felt like doing that now about as much as I felt like going back into the gym to finish my workout. There's a couple checking in today. We're slammed at the inn, but text Jules a time and place. She was talking about going out tonight, too. Will do, I said, wondering for the millionth time what I would do without my friends. Oh, and also, I waited for my friend's words of wisdom. Makis is a giant asshole, so there's that. I laughed. True statement. See you later. Hanging up, I got a look at my pale, tear-stained face. Winter sucked. Makis sucked. Men in general, suck. I was not getting myself into this situation ever again. The whole, it's better to have loved and lost than never loved before, was bullshit. I was done with love. Forever.
Chapter 2. Parker. There he is, the man of the hour. As usual, Beck stood behind the bar at O'Malley's pub, raising a hand to me as I walked through the surprisingly heavy Wednesday night crowd. Not surprising that he was currently working a group of female tourists with his drink-making skills. His surfer good looks, slightly out of place in upstate New York, would charm every one of them. Question was, which did Beck have his eye on? Took you long enough, Mason said. I sat in the empty seat beside him. The brunette, he whispered. Convenient of them, I said of the women, to differentiate themselves. One brunette, one blonde, one redhead. Speaking of brunettes, I said as Beck poured my beer, where's Pia? Mason's fiancée was usually not far behind him, and this celebration was her idea. Not that I thought a celebration was needed. I constructed a footbridge, pro bono, for the town because it connected a residential area with a kids' park, not for some award from the Cedar Falls Recreational Committee. Drinking wine with Delaney. Couldn't they drink wine here? I asked as Beck pushed a beer toward me. Apparently not. She's going through a bad breakup. Who? Beck asked. He hated not being part of a conversation. Nosy bastard. Go back to impressing your tourists. Shh, he admonished me. Don't want her to hear and think I'm a player. Mason and I exchanged a glance, and we both burst into laughter. Neither of us needed to state the extremely obvious. Beck was the biggest player that either of us had ever met. Assholes, he muttered as a guy at the end of the bar flagged him down for a drink. I can't believe you haven't met her yet, Mason said. I assumed about Pia's good friend Delaney. I wasn't born and raised in Cedar Falls and therefore didn't know every single person in town like Mason and Beck. I don't think she's lived here full-time since you came to town, Mason said. But she's been here at least since Pia moved to town, so she's been around since fall. True, but with the long-distance boyfriend, Delaney is usually out of Dodge whenever she's not working. I was about to ask him what Pia's friend did for a living when Beck reappeared. Round of shots for the best of us. He slid one toward each of us. As he held up his phone, a familiar face appeared. He might be crazy as hell, but Beck was one thoughtful motherfucker too. Congratulations on the big award, a friend Cole said through the phone. He was the only one of us not living in Cedar Falls. It's not a big deal, I insisted. Cole adjusted his dark-framed glasses, which made him look every inch the college professor that he was. To Parker, Mason said, lifting his shot glass. The nice one. Even Cole lifted a shot glass. It looked like he was at a bar too, though. It was very different from the small-town Irish pub, Cole living in Manhattan and all. Bound by life's ride, Beck said as we all finished our familiar toast. Here's to the journey. Beck handed the phone to me and went back to work. Thanks for checking in. When are you coming back to town? I asked him as Mason looked on. Can't hear you guys very well, Cole said. Never mind, we'll talk later. See you, Cole, Mason added before Cole put up a hand, signing off. Oh, what's next for the big award winner? Mason pushed his shot glass toward Beck, who grabbed it walking by. The guy was a phenomenal bartender, even if he picked up nearly as many women as he served. Oh, not you too. I took a swig of beer. Mason almost smiled. It took a lot for the corner of his lips to actually rise. Seriously, though, what's on tap after your weatherproofing job? I was thinking we could tackle the bathrooms. With you, not the inn, Mason clarified. Since he took over his father's inn, leaving the NYPD behind and moving back to Cedar Falls last year, I moved in and helped to renovate the place. So, of course, Beck did too, not wanting to miss out. Thankfully, even though Mason got together with Pia, his fiancée was on good terms with us clowns and cool with the arrangement. Nothing major, I said. A lot of odd jobs, painting, tiling. We lost the apartment complex bid. How did Jack manage to fuck that up? By being Jack. My boss has a penchant for fucking things up. Park, you gotta get out on your own. Different day, same discussion. Yeah. I'm serious. You have enough jobs under your belt, and if you're staying in construction, you can't keep working for someone that flighty. I agreed, but there were problems with going out on my own. With a college degree in business and growing up working at my father's car dealership, I knew what it took to start my own business. It also wasn't so simple in a town this size. Jack would be madder than hell. Clients who were also friends would be forced to choose between us. I was about peacemaking, not rocking the boat. The blonde just asked about you, Beck said to me, thankfully interrupting our discussion. Said, your cowboy-looking friend is hot. Told her you weren't a cowboy, but she didn't seem to care. It's the boots. Mason clearly got a kick out of that description. I was an outdoorsy guy. Did like my boots, but hiking and fishing weren't exactly the same thing as cattle herding. No thanks, I said. Not my type. I didn't need to look over, having already noticed the women when I came in. Unlike Beck, I didn't make one-night stands a regular occurrence. Not that I was into relationships either. All four of us swore off on those a long time ago. Although Mason apparently didn't get the memo. Or at least lost the memo after meeting Pia. I could hear the blonde giggling from here. Definitely not my type. You sure? Beck asked, adding matchmaking to his eclectic resume. Positive. Good call, Mason said as Beck walked off. They're barely 21. My phone buzzed. Looking at the screen, I groaned. What is it? Shit, I said, rereading the text. Dad wants to visit this weekend. I texted him back. That's strange. Agreed. Selling must be up. Do we have room? At the inn? Sure. Valentine's Day weekend is the only one sold out in the next month. He's a real piece of work. Mason added. A guy who cheated on my mother 3 times before getting caught, whose midlife crisis started when my brothers were barely out of diapers and had never ended. Yeah, that's one word for him. I texted back, tossed my phone on the bar, and called to Beck. I'm gonna need another beer. Maybe a shot, too.
Chapter 3. Delaney. Jules to the rescue. I pressed pause on the remote as Juliet, otherwise known as Jules, stepped inside waving a bottle of my favorite wine in the world. No, I said. You didn't. Yes, I did. Taking off her jacket, Jules put down the bottle of Aonair wine. It was $100 bottle from a small winery in Sonoma that we only pulled out on special occasions. And tonight was certainly no special occasion. My poor friend was in for a heap of moping and commiserating, which was why I told her to go out without me, but she refused. "It's so cozy in here," she said, heading to the kitchen. When I moved back to Cedar Falls, finding this old Victorian home just a few blocks off the square felt like kismet. On a quaint, tree-lined street within walking distance to the pharmacy, the only thing it needed was some fresh paint. Courtesy of my dad and his painter friend, a cheerful shade of blue greeted me every day. Before the winter hit, 2 rocking chairs and some hanging plants made it a perfect welcome home after a long day at work. "You're brooding again," Jules said, handing me a glass of wine. Grabbing a fuzzy blanket, she situated herself on the other couch. "I love your house." Jules lived in an apartment, and I'd told her more than once she was welcome to move in. "I think you love it more than me," I said. She was staring at the stone fireplace, which unfortunately used real wood. The aesthetic was great, but it was a pain in the ass to keep wood and get started. "Honestly, I do. It's like a writer's paradise." Speaking of writing, how did that article about the birthplace of the women's rights movement do? Jules loved writing, but hated the fact that it was her nonfiction that brought home the bacon. It was well received, she said, tucking her feet under her. Jules's shoulder-length black hair was held back by a bandana. The multiple silver necklaces, always present, gave her an edgy look, exactly the opposite of my own. Red hair and a smattering of freckles tended to evoke more wholesome vibes than girl who lives on the edge. I took a sniff of the wine, intending to make every moment count. I still can't believe you brought this over on a random Friday night. Taking a sip, I let the burgundy liquid slide down my throat. "You've had a rough week." Jules took her own sip, the sound of a crackling fire the only one to fill the room. With my TV still on pause, and the street I lived on filled with older people and almost always pretty quiet, we might as well have been in the middle of a forest. I didn't count on that as a benefit of this house, and sometimes it was too quiet for me. But at this moment, it suited us. "The worst," I said after another few sips of wine, "is how angry I am for going back to him. I think I always knew he'd hurt me in the end, but I did it anyway." Jules had as sordid a dating history as me and could understand. "I know," she said, "but love isn't logical. We don't always make the best decisions, but the past is in the past, over and done with. No point in looking back. You're not going that way." Surprisingly, I didn't feel tears forming or the tingle of my cheeks that said they were coming. My chest still hurt, but it was more like an emptiness than a knot twisting inside there. I took another sip, not wanting to put the show back on. For the past few weeks, I alternated between work, the gym, and home, usually numbing myself with reality TV. All for some giant asshole who'd probably moved on the second after he broke up with me. Again. "I'm done," I said. "With?" "All of it. Moping over him, hiding in my house, feeling like shit. I'm done." Jules smiled. "I'd have brought the A&R weeks ago if I knew it would be that easy." I lifted the glass. This helped, no doubt, but I just think being sad only gives him more power over me. But Makis isn't in control of my life. I am. It's time to act like it. Jules pulled the blanket over one of her feet, which were notoriously always cold. "That's my girl." "Remind me to listen to you next time you give me dating advice." Jules laughed. "Which specific piece of advice are we talking about?" "The one about not having to try so hard to make it work. If he was meant to be in my life, he would be." "Sound advice." That gem is from Pia, who knows a bit about the subject. Jules nodded. "She does. It's hard to imagine now that she and Mason had any rough patches. Clearly they were meant to be together." "I'm happy for her," I said sincerely. "Same." "Speaking of Mason, he does have 2 single hot men living with him. If you really are over the asshole Makis hump, first of all, no way. And second of all, no way." I took a sip of wine, wishing I could be transported back to Sonoma. "Too soon?" "Much. Not to mention, I dated one of them already." "Does that really count, though? You were in middle school." I thought of Beck when we were young and, more recently, of him slinging drinks behind the bar at O'Malley's. The vision was complete with no less than 3 females hanging off his arm, drooling. "Yes," I insisted, "it counts. I'm also 0% interested in a serial dater like him." "You were the one who said no more relationships. I'd think he was perfect." "No, not perfect." "And the other one, what's his name?" "Parker something or other. Mason and gang met him in college." "I've heard him mentioned here and there. Probably ran into him at some point." "Probably," I agreed. Cedar Falls wasn't that big, and while I hadn't been back long, Jules never left. "Although you are a bit of a homebody, so—" "A bit?" she laughed. "Okay, more than a bit." Jules suddenly leapt up. She took my glass and headed to the kitchen. "We're opposite in so many ways," she said, refilling us. I grabbed my phone. We'd talked about ordering some Chinese, and suddenly I was starving. "Don't they say opposites attract?" I asked as Jules came back into the living room. "I think that's in terms of dating." She handed back my wine, now filled. Well, either way." I lifted my glass. As we clinked, I said, "To friends. I honestly don't know what I'd have done without you and Pia these past few weeks." "You'd have been just fine." "Eventually, maybe," I said as Jules headed back to her couch. "Either way, I appreciate it. Chinese is on me. What are you getting?" "Chicken and broccoli, white rice, and an egg roll." "You'd have been just fine." Maybe. Maybe not. Either way, I was grateful for the friendships that had helped pull me through. I'd have relapses, obviously, memories that would undoubtedly trigger me, but the moping had to stop. He just wasn't worth it. "It's been a while since I've seen that famous Delaney smile." I looked up from my phone. It's been a while since I've felt like smiling. To think a man, no, a boy, had so thoroughly broken me. I thought I was stronger than that, but I guess life still had some lessons to share. My friends and family were all I needed. I might even put a "No Boys Allowed" sign on my front door. "What's so funny? Jules asked as I called the restaurant. Nothing, I said. Just me being silly. Delaney is back. I love it. Yes, I said, waiting for an answer and hoping to convince myself it was true. Yes, she is.
Chapter 4. Parker. Morning, Mr. Scott. Mason and I sat, as we did most mornings, at the kitchen island. Pia had taken her coffee to the inn portion of Heritage Hill to speak with Esther, who cooked breakfast every morning for guests. The original inn was an old mansion built as a private lakeside residence in the late 1800s. The house side where we stayed was added on and restored 20 years ago, but under Mason and Pia's plan, all of it was getting an update. Today, though, was a day off. No work of any kind, courtesy of Dad's visit. Always so formal, my dad said, heading to the coffee pot. Military guys, I said of Mason. Also just good manners. Well, it makes me feel old. Parker will do just fine. Doesn't it get confusing? Mason asked. Same name and all. Dad and I exchanged a glance. It was like looking into a mirror of the future. Though my brothers were more of a mix, I was 100% my father. I had a sprinkle of white hair, some wrinkles, and a few extra pounds in the belly, and our similarities didn't stamp in our names. Nah, we manage okay. My father sat down beside me. Good time last night, he said. We'd gone to O'Malley's, as usual, although my father only spent about half of the night with us. Who was the woman you met? I asked. I'm going to help here, my traitor of a friend said. See you later, Mr. Mason cleared his throat. Parker, he amended. Left alone with him, I tried to dredge up the same feelings I had for the guy when I was younger, when I looked up to him, before he cheated, before he left. A loan officer, he said. Divorced, and pretty good-looking, too. It had been a number of years since my parents split, but I still wasn't comfortable talking about dating with my dad. Probably never would be. Maybe if Mom dated too, it would be different. But she didn't, despite urging from my brothers and me. She said her sons and friends were enough, but I had a feeling she'd just been burned too much by Dad's infidelity to try again. You still up for cross-country skiing? I asked. One thing Dad and I still had in common was anything to do with the outdoors. I had to give him credit for that, at least. He taught me all sorts of things, from skiing to fishing and hunting. Sure thing, but I have to skip out on dinner. I'd have asked why, but I already knew. My dad was so goddamn predictable. Just to be sure, I said, the woman? You don't mind, do you? To not have to make small talk with him all day and night? Nah, I said, meaning it. I'm heading into town first to pick up some materials. Do you need anything? Where is Lakeside Pharmacy? He asked. Strange question. It's just off the square. Why? Can you stop and grab a script for me? Or nothing special, just forgot one of my meds. Doc called it in this morning. Should be ready by now. Thought we could stop on our way out. Dad took a slew of medications. High cholesterol, high blood pressure. He claimed years of owning a car dealership were responsible for both, but it was more likely his affinity for bacon accounted for at least some of his problems. I'll grab it. Be ready in, say, an hour? Dad lifted up his coffee mug. Sounds good. His smile, so familiar because it often mirrored my own, was disarming. This was probably, among other reasons, why Mom had taken him back so many times. The guy really was a charmer. It was hard to stay mad at him. I'll be ready. I could hear my mother's voice in my ear. He was a shit husband, but a good father. Remember that. It was my mom who got me speaking to him again after the third affair. My brothers had no choice since they both worked at the dealership. But Dad and I had a rocky go of it for a while there. Things still weren't back to normal, whatever that was, but I suppose this weekend was a good thing, even if he was skipping out on part of it. Him taking 2 days off from the dealership was a big deal. so I'd at least make an effort. Grabbing my jacket, I stepped out onto the thin layer of snow that had fallen last night. When I'd get back, I'd toss some rock salt on that. Mason hadn't left the inn, and probably had no idea it had even snowed. Walking up the hill, I ran to the hardware store first. Cedar Falls town center was a perfect square, its trees and gazebo now barren. In warmer weather, tourists would fill the square and blocks of shops and restaurants around it. But today, there was only a handful of stragglers, mostly locals. Millie. I ran up to an older woman trying to open the door of a coffee shop. Let me get that. I took a grocery bag. Why didn't you have these delivered? Escorting her inside, I walked the widow to the counter. Walking keeps me young, she said, pulling the scarf around her neck tighter. Understandable, but you have to be careful. Let me bring these to your house while you get coffee, I said, knowing she would argue with me. Oh, no, she started, but I wasn't listening. I'll put 'em by your door. Enjoy your coffee, I said as Millie chastised me up until I was outside. She was a staple at the coffee cabin, and I'd had more than one cup with her since moving here. It was only a few blocks out of my way to Millie's house. Hers was one of my first construction jobs when I'd moved to Cedar Falls, her husband having hired us to tear down and rebuild their front porch. By the time I headed back to the square to hit the pharmacy, foregoing another coffee, my dad had texted, asking if we were leaving soon. Patience was not one of his virtues. Opening the door of Lakeside Pharmacy, I tried to remember the last time I'd been inside. It wasn't long after I'd moved to Cedar Falls, though. I couldn't remember what I'd needed a prescription for. It was a small place with a few drugstore-type items with a checkout counter and pharmacy in the back. A long, empty counter greeted me. Not completely empty, actually. A bell, with a small index card with the words, "Ring me," scrawled on it was apparently my signal. I rang the bell. A woman stepped out from behind the rows of medications. I'd never seen her before. Her red, medium-length hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She looked like an actress, though I couldn't remember the woman's name. Very little makeup and a smattering of freckles across her nose and cheeks gave her a very wholesome look. Wholesome. And very, very pretty. A white lab coat gave the woman away as a pharmacist. A young one, late 20s, maybe. As she approached, it was her smile that enraptured me most. That and the unusual blue-gray color of her eyes. Can I help you? Her voice was sweet, peppy, endearing, like the woman herself. Yeah, I managed, not used to being tongue-tied. I'm picking up a prescription for Parker Scott. She moved to a box of bags behind her, rifling through them. Sorry about the service, she said. Our clerk called off and no one was available last minute. You're the pharmacist? I asked, silently kicking myself for such a dumbass question. Obviously, she was. I am. She turned back around, punched something into the register, and looked up as I handed her my credit card without asking the price. Do you have any questions about this? Her expression was unreadable, but I was sure mine was anything but. I probably looked like a lovesick teenager, or someone who'd never seen a pretty woman before. But damn, there was something about her. It was the smile. Lip gloss and mascara. That was all she wore. Lip gloss and mascara. Why bother with anything else if you were that naturally pretty? No, I managed. No questions. It's for my dad. Thankfully, I didn't say that out loud, too. Probably already thought I had the emotional maturity of a 14-year-old. Are you from Cedar Falls? I asked. I don't remember seeing you around. I am. My phone rang. She handed me back my card and looked at my pocket as if to ask, Are you going to answer that? Why the hell wasn't my phone on silent like usual? I wanted to ignore it, keep talking to her, but since our transaction was over, there was no good excuse to stay, especially with my phone being really fucking annoying. Grabbing it from my pocket, I mumbled a thank you and headed back out of the pharmacy. Not surprisingly, it was my father. I'm in my snow pants, he said, sweating my balls off. Rolling my eyes, I headed out of the pharmacy and back toward the inn. I'm on my way, I said, feeling even more like a teenage kid than I had inside the store. My father had a way of putting me on the defensive, as if I weren't a 32-year-old man. And why the hell are you wearing your snow pants? Thinking better of it, I added, never mind, I'll be there in 5. Good, he said. Oh, and Beck just woke up. Wanted me to ask you about grabbing a sausage and egg sandwich from the coffee cabin. Tell him I'm already running late and to eat a piece of fruit. He said to eat a piece of fruit, my dad told Beck, who was apparently with him still. I won't repeat what he said. Beck. What a piece of work. Fair enough, I'll be there in 5. Hanging up, I turned off my ringer and headed back down the hill, thoughts of a certain redhead floating through my mind. Who was she? It wouldn't take much to figure out. I'd ask Mason or Beck. Between the two of them, they knew every single person in Cedar Falls, especially the women. Hell, chances were that one of them had even dated her, judging by her age, unless she was an implant like me. Please, just don't let it be Beck.
Chapter 5. Delaney. Finished counting the pills, I placed them in their container along with the label, checking the information 3 times. It was monotonous work, and for the millionth time I wonder what had possessed me to become a pharmacist. Aside from an offhand comment from my college advisor, it had never been on my radar. Medical school? Sure. A marine biologist? For the longest time, that had been my dream. And of course, an artist would have made total sense. Instead, here I was, back home, counting pills. Stuck. Reminding myself I was a glass half full and not glass half empty kind of girl, I shook off the self-pity. I'd just decided last night to stop wallowing in the post-breakup blues and wasn't going to start up with this train of thought. I'd picked my career path and had been lucky enough to land this job in a town where my parents both still lived along with old friends and new ones too. Count your blessings, Delaney. The bell startled me. It was a quiet late January day with very little foot traffic. Not that Lakeside was a huge drugstore, and most people only came in for prescriptions, but we did have a few aisles of odds and ends, and in warmer months had a steady stream of customers. "Hey," I said, walking to the counter to find Pia there. "What's going on?" "Surprise!" She held up a bag. "That looks suspiciously like—" I leaned in closer. "No, you didn't." "Yep, I did. Mason and I went for dinner and knew you were working late." She handed me the bag. "There's a fork in there, too." "Stop," I said, peeking inside. "What do I owe you?" "Dinner. When's your next night off?" "Tomorrow, but—" "Done. Let's go to the Grapevine. I'm dying for their stuffed pork chop." "Thank you," I said, venturing a guess. "Jambalaya?" "Obviously," Pia teased. She knew the jambalaya from a local favorite New Orleans-themed restaurant, the Big Easy, was one of my favorites. "So what was your standby?" "A banana and bag of Ruffles." Pia laughed. "Nice." For some reason, packing my lunch, or in tonight's case dinner, was one of my least favorite chores. In my defense, Becca called off. My original plan was to run out for something. "Uh-huh." Pia looked skeptical. "Oh, I forgot to tell you. That bracelet you made for me, the one with the turquoise stones?" "Yeah." I opened the bag. With no customers, there was no time like the present to dig in. If someone came in, I'd bring my food to the back. "A couple checked in yesterday and she asked where I got it from. When I told her a friend made it, she asked if you could make her one. She said, and I quote, 'whatever the cost.'" Pia knew I only designed jewelry for friends. The idea of starting it as a business, plus long hours at the pharmacy, wasn't in my immediate plans. A girl could dream, though. "Whatever the cost, huh?" I asked, intrigued. Taking a bite of jambalaya, I groaned at how good it was, which made me immediately think of him. "Oh my God," I said between bites. "How about this one? The hottest guy ever came in this morning." "Ooh, I like it. You weren't kidding when you said you were ready to move on." I rolled my eyes. "Trust me, I'm not going there, but you have to hear this. He was mega hot, outdoorsy type, brown hair, very well built."